high-tech oils. Available from Auto One, Sprint Auto Parts and all leading independent auto stores.
On today's show, we head to Melbourne's Calder Park Raceway for the latest instalment of the ANDRA Drag Racing series. The top Doorslammers are out in force for this round, and the man they're out to chase is 8-time and reigning champ John Zappia. Then we wind the clock back to October 2015 for round 2 of the Trans-Tasman Drifting Championship at Sydney Motorsport Park, as the stars of the High Tech Drift All-Star Series get ready for their New Zealand invasion later this month. And later in the show, we stay at Sydney Motorsport Park for the opening round of the 2016 Swan Insurance Australasian Superbike Championship, as the sport's most competitive motorcycling series kicks into top gear for the new season. This is Speedweek.
Last time out in the ANDRA Drag Racing series, Zappia continued his scintillating form at the Australian Nationals.
That gap opens up by Zappia at half track. It's hard to deny there. What is the Fuchs Lubricant team?
And a 576, again, just head and shoulders above the rest of the field, John Zappia.
With only 2 rounds remaining, the most successful driver in top Doorslammer racing is edging closer to a 9th championship crown. However, his opposition have converged again at Calder, hoping to hunt down and exterminate Zach's rack.
Hello and welcome to the ANDRA Drag Racing Series. We're here at Calder Park Raceway in Victoria for round 5 of the ANDRA Drag Racing Series, and it is also a round of the top Doorslammer Championship. It is going to be fantastic. We have got a huge field of top Doorslammers assembled, some of the quickest in the nation, and they're all going to be gunning for John Zappia here this weekend. He's way out in front in the championship. Speaking of which, let's have a look at the championship points right now. John Zappia, 428 points. Peter Kapiris, Grant O'Rourke and Mark Belleri all fighting amongst themselves for second, but it is going to be a great race meeting, and let's go catch up with some of our drivers.
Basically a whole generation has missed out on drag racing, so it's good to be back at Calder Park. The track's still, not as good as some of the other tracks, but everyone's got to get down the same racetrack, so it's a matter of applying your knowledge and getting down the racetrack. The start line is as good as anywhere in Australia, but once you progress down the racetrack, it deteriorates a little, whereas the other tracks are stickier and you can put down a lot more horsepower.
Oh, it's always good to be back here. I mean, the weather's not really with us, it's very overcast, but it's good to be here. I think everyone's struggling with the conditions. Like I said, the track probably hasn't come around as good as it should have.
About 60 feet, gets a bit slippery out there, but the weather's not too bad. Hopefully the weather holds out, but the track is a bit slippery today.
The setups are changed by your timing curve, the amount of fuel, and clutch slippage. So there's a recipe, and everyone basically varies that recipe to get down the racetrack. A bad racetrack, you take horsepower away. A good racetrack, you put more timing, and it goes in increments of tenths of seconds. So you might put horsepower in at half a second or 0.8 of a second. So it really depends on the racetrack and the feel of the driver and what he thinks and what the crew chief thinks.
You tried, obviously different ratios in the gearbox, different clutch settings. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to play with.
This is only the second time I've raced at Calder. The track is a little bit run down, though in saying that, it's got plenty of bite and start line, so we're going pretty well off the hit. It's just as we're getting into second gear, it's getting a little bit, car's getting a little bit loose, and there's a bit of a transition there which put us out on the first run. It got us a bit sideways, but which will make me have to get off the accelerator. But other than that, it's not a bad track.
Well, everyone's around the 5.1 zone, so it won't be unheard of for the cars to go to 4.9. So 4.9, 5.0, you should see those times. We'll obviously try for 4.9, We think the track will hold the power, but then again, that's that magic recipe of if you try and put too much power down, you'll go backwards.
So we're going to have a look at some qualifying highlights now as Paul Cannulli straps into his car and strapping into the commentary box alongside me, Dave Carter. It's going to be a great event, this one, Dave.
G'day, Rusty. I do like to see some quick cars with swinging doors, as you can see here. That is the key of the top door slammers. These cars very far away from what you would see on the streets, but still opening doors based loosely around a car chassis. It's going to be some serious racing.
Absolutely. Let's have a look at the highlights from qualifying now. Rob Taylor on the far side of the racetrack. Mark Belleri driving for Maurice Fabietti alongside him. And Rob Taylor way out in front. 5-1-4. Great run for him. Takes him straight to the top of the tree provisionally. Tony DeFelice on the far side. Peter Kapiris, one of the championship contenders. Problems for Kapiris and a 5.23 for Tony DeFelice. Good run for the part-time racer.
Jeff Gradden blowing the tyres straight off out of staging. He was Paul Cannulli rocketing off towards the track, and a bit of a scare there. He managed to keep it off the wall and head through to elimination.
That's a big moment for Paul Cannulli there. Experience showing through. Kept it off the concrete and he's good for eliminations. Grant O'Rourke and John Zappia now two of our championship protagonists here. And Grant O'Rourke rolls the beams. That is a massive, massive moment. He shook the tyres anyway, and John Zappia leads it on through. A solid run for him. And, well, he is going to be down the qualifying list a little bit with that one. Let's have a look at the top door slammer qualifying results as it shook out. Grant O'Rourke, your number one qualifier courtesy of a previous run. Rob Taylor in second, Jeff Gradden, Tony DeFelice, John Zappia back in fifth, Mark Belleri, Paul Cannulli and Peter Kapiris rounding out the top 8 for High-Tech Oils. So we are set for a start in eliminations here this afternoon. It is going to be a good one. Under threatening skies, though, it is going to be a little bit of a problem, I think, the rain at some point today, but we'll take it as it comes. Dave, it's a good field, the top door slammers here, but a few surprises thrown up in the qualifying list. John Zappia and Peter Kapiris particularly a long way down the list.
Yeah, I mean, those guys are right out in front on top of the ladder with hardly any points separating the guys in second, third and fourth. So in round one, O'Rourke up against Kapiris and DeFelice against Zappia will be some ones to watch, along with Taylor and Cannulli. And Jeff Gradden up against Belleri, who's looking to make that bump up onto the championship podium.
First matchup of the first round of racing, it is going to be John Zappia, the 8-time consecutive national champion in the Fuchs Holden Monaro. Interesting burnout there, not a lot of smoke, must be very cool conditions out there at the moment. And he will be alongside Tony DeFelice in the DeFelice Homes Camaro. Now, interesting fact about Tony DeFelice, he actually does race GT cars as well, circuit racing GT cars. Has driven in the Bathurst 12-hour over the last couple of years and is a very, very committed team owner. But nice to see that the passion for circuit racing can also cross to drag racing as well. Tony's been a drag racer for a long, long time, and it's great to see him back out here at Calder Park Raceway.
Yeah, you often see that rivalry come up. I mean, the drag racer saying if you can do a corner, you're going too slow, and the guys in the circuit taking away from the talent it takes to steer these extremely high-powered cars in what looks almost like a straight line, but definitely is not from behind the wheel.
Well, there's no other car that I know of that picks up the front wheels and takes away your steering, so that's one tick in the column for drag racers. But anyway, this is going to be a great race. Zappia way out in front on as far as the championship goes at the moment. But as far as Tony DeFelice goes, he's a bit of a smoky here. He's got all the horsepower in the world. He's got some very, very smart guys behind him. This car was built by Murray Anderson, who's one of the absolute gurus of chassis building when it comes to top door slammers. So that car's got all the goods. It's got all the go-fast bits. Can he knock off the champ?
Getting the white benefit there. It looks like DeFelice left behind the line, but big smash across the centre line there. Headlight gone out of the front of Zappia's Monaro. What's gone wrong?
That's crazy. Tony DeFelice smoked the tyres right at the hit of the throttle. He was out of this race for all money. You can see straight up in tyres, mate. Left the screen. Keep your eye on John Zappia. Usually that car is really well behaved. He went a 4.98. It was a great run, but he hit the centre line. Instant disqualification. The championship leader, the champ, is out of here in the first round of racing. That's a massive moment.
It's an interesting comparison of that safety style. DeFelice getting right off the throttle there and probably driving himself out of being side by side that tail slapping Monaro across the line.
Yeah, discretion, the better part of valor there for Tony DeFelice, just coasts on down the line, and he does the right thing, he gets the win, but keep your eye on John Zappia's hands here. He's got a lot of input into the steering wheel, but not quite enough to keep it in his lane. The car didn't look as violent from the inside, but it certainly went over that centre line, instant disqualification, and unfortunately for John Zappia, he's out of here. But what it does mean, this man, Mark Belleri, is that he's going to have a big chance to make up some ground in the championship chase.
Yeah, currently sitting at 4th position, Belleri, but only within maybe 10 or 20 points of 3rd and 2nd position. So he's got some climbing to do if he can get past Jeff Gradden in that beautiful looking Sigra rolling stock components Hemi-powered Chrysler, making a mean noise as it idles its way back to stage there. Certainly a race to keep an eye on.
And Mark Belleri, the Holden Trade Club CV8 Monaro, this is a tough car. His first season driving this car for Maurice Fabietti, and Maurice is, I guess he's done the right thing as far as he's concerned. He's stepped out of the car, he's had a few issues around driving it with his back, and he said, you know what, Mark is a good driver, I've known him for a long time, he's plugged him into the seat here, and I think this partnership is really starting to pay dividends. You know, they're sitting in the top 5 in the championship at the moment, still a few rounds left to go in the championship as well, so certainly with all the potential in the world, their first season, and they're already punching way above their weight, so I think that's going to be a good one to watch.
Belleri nailing the light there. Again, that right lane shooting out in front with a great green light and a very quick time there. 5:09.1 with Gradden left on the line there with issues.
Yeah, Battle of the Sydney Siders, and Mark Belleri gets out in front. 007 on the tree. That's just a bad job of red lighting. I say that with my tongue firmly planted in my cheek. Mark is a great driver, but 007 is almost psychic on the Christmas tree. And at 5:09 in the end, it's a good run. Not quite in the fours where we saw John Zappia running on that disqualified run, but still a good pass straight down the centre of the lane. A good confidence builder for Mark Belleri.
Watching Gradden in that left lane having similar smoking issues to DeFelice earlier on makes me question whether that left lane is just a little bit sticky. Those 2 right lane wins we've seen in a row, whether it's a bit slippery in the staging area, but Rob Taylor will be the one to prove that for us now. Yeah,
well, Rob Taylor's got a good history at this track. He managed to run his first 5-second pass over quarter mile very recently. Congratulations to him and the team on that one. A 5:99, I think it was, but this is a different deal. We're running over 1,000 foot, and he's taking on one of the big hitters of this championship, Paul Cannulli, in that Duster. I personally think one of the coolest body shapes that we've got in this field. But Paul Cannulli, he will not want to sneeze here because Rob Taylor will be there to take the goodies.
You stole that off me, Rusty. That Plymouth Duster, hands down, my favourite looking car as well. What a beast.
Talk about a pedal fest. Rob Taylor was smoking, he was shaking, the chutes haven't come out, he's got a handful on his hands right now. He's got to get that car stopped. It looks like the chutes have blossomed, so he should be okay. But man, I don't even know where to start on this one. We've got to have a look at the replay. Cannulli got out, shook the tyres a little bit by that point though. Rob Taylor was up on 2 wheels, almost over the centre line, gives it a couple of stabs, still spinning the tyres and fishtailing his way across the finish line. In the meantime, Cannulli's over in the other lane, trying to keep his hands full and trying to keep that car in his lane. Man, drag racing's easy, just go in a straight line, easy as that.
I see you're getting a little bit burnt by the earlier comments about circuit racing there, Rusty.
I didn't say anything.
No one could doubt the talent it takes these guys to get through there. Looks to be a little bit of slipperiness at half track, and I mean, these guys are really struggling to get that power down, and what a bunch of power they've got.
Absolutely, and it's a little bit humid today as well. That's the other thing to keep in mind, and the more humid it is, obviously the more water that you've got in the air, and sometimes some of that air and the dew can just sit on the racetrack a little bit, make it a little bit hard to get it hooked up, and you know, that's just the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah, it was interesting to see from that aerial shot the huge skid marks from Paul Cannulli there. I mean, crazy to hold on to it and keep it off that centre line, and hopefully this pairing between Grant O'Rourke and Peter Kapiris will be a bit more faithful of the earlier ones we've seen. We've seen some real hairy moments, and hopefully not to be continued into the final.
Well, absolutely, and you know, these 2 guys are number 2 and 3 in the championship at the moment, so there's a lot on the line when it comes to this race. Peter Kapiris racing in front of his hometown crowd here in Melbourne, and qualified right at the bottom of the list, not where we're used to seeing the former national champion run. He's way down there in 8th, and Grant O'Rourke, well, he's right up there at the point here. Number 1 qualifier coming in. You wouldn't expect these 2 guys to match up in the first round of racing, but we find ourselves here. That is the quality of this top Doorslammer field.
staging games going on there between Capirus and O'Rourke, but it looks like O'Rourke well and truly out in front there. Issues again in the left lane for Capirus.
Yeah, not sure what happened for Capirus there. It looked like he had to pedal it and maybe picked up the front wheels, but Grant O'Rourke, this was basically a picture-perfect pass for him, straight down the centre of the lane. It looked like he could have even taken his hands off the steering wheel. That thing went so straight. Great run for him. That team have got this track nailed down, but keep your eye on Peter Capirus. Shook the tyres, gave it a pedal, got back into it, and the car went quiet. Something came off it. I'm not sure what it was, but by that point, this run was basically done. 5:05 for Grant O'Rourke. A solid win for him, and he will move on to the semi-finals where he'll take on Tony DeFelice, the giant killer in the first round of racing. But Peter Capirus out of here in number 2 in the points, number 1 and 2 in the points, I should say, out of here in the first round of racing. Our semi-final matchups will see O'Rourke and DeFelice and Paul Cannulli taking on Mark BELLERI. Let's go catch up with John Zappia and find out what happened.
Yeah, I know. It's the car left really well, and I got through second gear, made my first full throttle pass all day, and then just at the last minute it darted left just before the finish line, took out both the finish line cones at 1,000 foot. Possibly a little bit of oil got under the left tyre, made me drive straight left. But other than that, it was going really well, and we thought we had it in the bag. The other guy lost traction. We could have backed off and rolled, but it just happened that quick that there's no way I could catch it and keep it in my lane, unfortunately. But anyway, so far at the moment we're leading the points still by 120 points. Grant O'Rourke's now in second place. So we'll see how it goes at the end of the night. We're still looking good at Adelaide, but we can't determine whether we've won it or whether we've got to wait till Adelaide to get the final outcome. But the Fuchs Monaro went well on that run, but unfortunately it used up too much track, and that was it.
You absolutely have to give it to John Zappia. He's out in the first round, but he already knows how the points are shaking out. An incredible racer. Don't go anywhere. We've got all the semi-final action coming up after the break. Welcome back to Calder Park here. We've got the semi-finals almost ready to go here in the ANDRA Drag Racing Series. Top Doorslammer is the class that we're looking at today. But I tell you what, this weather is starting to look a little bit sketchy. It's just starting to close in. We haven't got any of the wet stuff yet, but it certainly looks like it might be on its way.
Yeah, it's not only a race against the clock, but also a race against the weather to see if O'Rourke and DeFelice and Cannulli and BELLERI can get through to that final round before conditions close over. I mean, there's already been some serious racing and a few traction issues both at the beginning of the track and half track, with some centre lines crossed and some close calls. So it'll be interesting to see how these guys go as conditions worsen.
And the other thing you've got to remember, it completely changes the tune-up as well for the crew chiefs in these cars.
You're right, Rust. It's no small feat to keep these blown big blocks on song, and I bet there's a few cluey guys in the pits with laptops having a bit of a tweak with the fuel and the timing maps, trying to make the absolute most of the traction here without blowing off the tyres, as we've seen in earlier rounds.
You know, and it's interesting. There's a whole lot of things that they can do to try and take horsepower out of these cars, to try and change the clutch around. They can take fuel away, they can change the blower overdrive on it, they can change heat gaskets, they can take weight off the clutch to try and stop it from hooking up so quickly. But all in all, a lot of this is going to come down to the driver. They need to be able to react. They need to be able to pedal the car if it smokes the tyres. If it starts shaking, maybe grab a little bit of the handbrake to try and slow the wheel speed down. A lot of this is going to come back to the guy in the seat. And in this case, you've got two very experienced campaigners in Mark BELLERI left of screen and Paul Cannulli in that beautiful duster.
Yeah, sounds like a few professionals' tricks under your sleeve there, Rusty, and I'm sure these guys will be using every spare limb to get these cars in a straight line and in front of the other one through the track.
I'm available for hire.
BELLERI getting the white there, .065, and rocketing away.
Yeah, great run for BELLERI. Dips into the 4-second zone, a 4.97. First time for the weekend for the Holden Trade Club Monaro. Great job for those guys. Not quite sure what happened for Paul Cannulli here. It looked like the wheel speed might have been a little bit slow straight off the start line, but it didn't shake. It didn't look like it turned the tyres. The butterflies closed and, well, the car went quiet. Let Mark BELLERI zoom on into the distance and take the win.
Yeah, a little crab off the line there, but other than that, dead straight. Possibly something on the dash or maybe mechanical issues caused him to shut off.
Ooh, ugly burnout for Grant O'Rourke. You can see how the car just sort of accelerated, didn't actually smoke the tyres there. I dare say that that's going to still have a little bit of residual water on that car, which is going to make it difficult to get it hooked up. He is taking on Tony DEFELICE, a man who, surprisingly for him, found himself in this semi-final round. Smoked the tyres right off the hit of the throttle in the first round of racing, but the 8-time champ John Zappia went across the centre line, handing the win back to Tony DEFELICE. Sometimes you say, well, you'd rather be lucky than good, and in this case, Tony DEFELICE was certainly lucky, but hey, it's only the win light that counts.
That gorgeous Camaro of DEFELICE coming back onto the line now, getting prepared to face off against the 68 Pontiac Firebird piloted by Grant O'Rourke. I mean, both these cars incredibly sinister looking, red v black, both coming into stage to find out who will be facing off against Mark BELLERI in the finals.
It's going to be interesting here. You can see Murray Anderson, crew chief for Tony DEFELICE, out in front of the car just giving his final instructions, and Grant O'Rourke, well, he has a lot to do with the tune-up on this car himself. He knows exactly what this car is set up to do. Whether or not it does it is another thing, because the sun's going down, the temperature's dropping. It's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out. Oh, DEFELICE. No, leaves before the Christmas tree was activated and hands the win to Grant O'Rourke. I guess you live by the sword, you die by the sword, and in this case for Tony DEFELICE, he won by technical knockout in the first round of racing. This time he loses by it.
Unfortunately, both of his runs today decided on the start line right there, with Grant O'Rourke rocketing away only a fraction later and coming past DEFELICE for the win.
On board with Grant O'Rourke. Now again, picture perfect pass right down the centre of the lane. They have got this car on rails right now. So, your final round for Snap-On is shaping up to be Grant O'Rourke and Mark BELLERI in the battle of two of the championship contenders here. It's going to have big implications. Well, we spoke about the weather a little bit earlier on in the show, and it looks like the weather may have come home to roost here, because there are very, very animated discussions going on here. You can see Grant O'Rourke on screen. He's right off screen. Maurice Fabietti in the middle, who owns the car that Mark BELLERI is driving, and Brett Stevens, the competition manager for ANDRA, the governing body here. Now, ANDRA is saying it's a bit cool. We've had a little bit of rain here. We've had to clean up a big, long oil down, and they've basically ruled that the meeting has been completed. So, there's a lot going on here because there's championship implications. Let's check in with Mark BELLERI.
Yeah, there was a fair bit of an oil down on the track, so they were cleaning it up in the process. It started raining, so we didn't really think the track was going to be safe enough for us to go out. And yeah, on looking at the track, I don't think it would have been right. Instead of wrecking two cars, we made the wiser call and said we weren't going. We got too much money invested in these cars, especially my life and Grant's life in the seat. We don't want to risk that.
Well, you put a helmet on and you'll drive the wheels off the thing, and I don't think there's any point in peeling them back off the wall to take them home. It's not for $1 million. It's not for sheep stations. For the bit of money you get and the trophy you get, we're hoping to finish that off and sort it out in a month's time in Adelaide. The outcome of that I don't know right now, but it's just not worth it.
Good to see the cooler heads have prevailed, but you see why those guys were so interested in racing, or so intent on racing, because Grant O'Rourke and Mark BELLERI are second and third in the points behind John Zappia. Now, it looks like this event may or may not be completed at Adelaide. We're still waiting on a decision from ANDRA as far as that goes in this final round, but all in all, it was still a good event this weekend, Dave.
Yeah, some close calls, but everybody managed to put the car on the trailer more or less whole. And that's exactly what you're going to see at the end of this Doorslammer series. Some of these guys ducking under the 5-second mark on the 1,000 metre, and that is some seriously quick racing.
Absolutely, and we are going racing with the final round of the ANDRA Drag Racing Series. It is the grand final. It's happening at Adelaide International Raceway down there in South Australia, happening on April 9th and 10th. It's going to be huge. Tickets are on sale now, and that's for the ANDRA Drag Racing Series and also the Summit Sportsman Series. Well, that's all we've got time for on today's show. Make sure you join us again when we're back in Adelaide for the final round of the championship. We'll see you next time.
Coming up after the break, we look back on all the drama and action of round 2 of the Trans-Tasman Drifting Championship from Sydney Motorsport Park.